Thanks for this warm welcome. It's great to be here, and I can say again, in the beautiful city of Vancouver, at the International Forum on Disability Management. This 9th Congress on Disability Management and Return to Work is not only an excellent opportunity to talk about challenges and innovations for workforce health. In a way, it is also a homecoming for disability management. And I use the expression coming home not only because of its obvious reference to geography. Coming home also has a biographical dimension. We all know this from our personal lives. You walk around your hometown. You visit the familiar streets. You catch up with old friends. And slowly an answer to a question emerges, a question that maybe you did not even intend to ask. And that question is, how does my life measure up against the dreams and goals I had when I left home? If disability management were a person, I'm sure that the answer to this question would be a feeling of contentment. And rightfully so. The list of accomplishments we can observe today inspires awe. Disability management once started as a one-man's idea to improve return to work. And in the past 20 years, it has grown into a global phenomenon. The disability management program has been adopted by and adapted for countries as diverse as Canada, China, Brazil, Australia, Malaysia, and various European countries. In total, agreements cover more than 20 countries around the globe. And more than 4,000 disability managers have been trained and certified so far. The program, the standard and audit tools developed by NITMAR have facilitated the development of social policies geared towards improving return to work around the world. I've personally advised governments and ministers who were eager to implement return to work policies. And in my experience, having a framework that defines the different aspects and roles involved in rehabilitating an injured individual helped to speed up things considerably. And the IDMSC played an important role in this context. It filled a void in the sense that one could compare one's own national approach to return to work with the combined global expertise in this field. It took courage and persistence to get there. The project of defining standards in our field required the conviction that distilling universally applicable requirements from experience would be feasible. This was by no means something of which one could be sure at that time. The field of social policy is a difficult one. Social policies depend on their setting. Factors like history, economy, social structures, social insurance, and infrastructure need to be taken into account. All things considered, it would have been easy to declare the entire undertaking a mission impossible. Yet the opposite has happened. The result? Professional and program standards that now serve as a point of reference for those who are active in the field of return to work and disability management. And then there was the creation of the Pacific Coast University, the world's first degree-granting university for occupational health and safety and disability management. From its start, the project gained traction among a wide range of stakeholders and decision-makers. It won bipartisan support in the state legislature. Groups ranking from business leaders to frontline workers endorsed the university, and the university is one more example for the focus on consensus. That is the central to the concept of disability management. It is worth quoting Wolfgang Zimmermann in this context. The quote is the following: "Consensus has been key all along and will continue to be essential as we move forward." Last but not least, there is the International Forum on Disability Management itself. The IFDM once started with the vision of gathering stakeholders and decision makers in the field of return to work and disability management. And on its way around the world, the IFDM has welcomed leaders in various fields, including business, politics, research, and social security. In view of this impressive track record, and sorry forgive that very brief, but even for some minutes, I think it's justified to say, vision accomplished. All of this would not have been possible without the creativity, endurance, and passion of Wolfgang Zimmermann. Wolfgang, where is he now? We know each other and work with each other for almost 2 decades now. The long list of successes I've just described is in a large part the fruit of your work. I don't know whether you knew that all of this would really happen when you set out to improve return to work and workplace inclusion for people with disabilities. What I do know, however, is that your life journey, too, is a striking example for the spirit so many people with disabilities show in the face of adversity. You refuse to accept things as they are. The fact that something looks unchangeable does not discourage you. If everyone says it can't be done, and I said it several times to him, that makes you strive even harder. These days, the world seems full of people who promise to make things big or huge. It's different with you. You do not promise, you deliver. And in doing so, you have managed to make the world a better place. And for this, you deserve our respect, our gratitude, and that is why I took these first 3 or 4 minutes a big round of applause. That's for you, Wolfgang. And as I said, coming home is usually an occasion for taking stock. In view of its successful career so far, the big question for disability management is, where do we go next? This question leads up to the topic, the real one of my presentation. The world of work is currently undergoing a massive transformation. The world that once gave birth to disability management and return to work, the world of stable employment conditions, social partners, and traditional industry, this world is increasingly affected by 3 powerful forces: globalization, demographic change, and above all, digitalization. In the past few decades, technological innovations that were once science fiction have entered our lives in rapid succession. Just to mention a few: the internet, video phones, 3D printers, drones, robots, artificial intelligence, and so on. These technologies have not only changed the way we live our lives. Just think of paperbacks. They were once a frequent sight on subway rides. The metro in Paris was once jokingly called France's biggest library. Today, paperbacks have almost disappeared from trains. Smartphones have taken over. The iPhones and its siblings have not just transformed the way we read newspapers and novels. They have also changed the ways we watch movies, we plan train rides, we book flights, we transfer money, and meet our future spouses. It is not surprising that all of these innovations have also started to influence the way in which we work and do business. Technology has reorganized entire sectors of the economy. Companies that are comparatively young, like Facebook, Google, and we could mention others, are now worth more than the big names of the industrial age. It is not surprising, then, that the digital transformation has begun to transform work itself. And by this, I do not only mean the regular updates of our computers or video conference problems that threaten the mental stability of millions of workers. I mean the organizational principles, the legal relationships and contractual agreements that are the foundation of the 19th century workplace. its metrics, if you want. Some scholars argue that the rapid evolution that is already taking place is so profound that it could signal the end of traditional work, end of the ways in which we organize social security, and that means also how we organize return to work. My aim today is to explore the scenario with you. Two questions serve as a guiding line on the expedition into the future. First, what could be the consequence of the current technological transformation for disability management? And second, how should we approach the current changes if we aim at shaping our future instead of merely witnessing the repercussions of the digital revolution? The starting point of my expedition is a story. The date of the story is the 15th of October, 2028, 10 years from today. In the city of somewhere, a young man, let's call him Ali, wakes up to the sound of his alarm clock app. Ali is not too keen on getting up. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. He has only slept for a couple of hours, having gone to bed around 1 in the morning. Looking for a gig, as work is called these days, took him far too long yesterday. He had almost given up on finding a job when suddenly a message from the platform Builders Online appeared on his phone. Builders Online is a marketplace that has specialized in bringing builders and construction firms together. More than any other profession, jobs in construction like bricklayer, roofer, or plumber have resisted automation. They still offer room for human work. Yet workers are no longer employed on a permanent basis. Like day laborers in the 19th century, they are hired on a short-term basis via digital platforms, where purchasers can find the best specialist for a specific task. With labor being in enormous supply, the cheapest offer usually wins. At least I have work, Ali thinks. Most of his friends are unemployed. He sighs and gets out of bed. The Builders Online app informs him that his work window starts at 6:30 a.m. and ends 5 hours later. By then, his job, exchanging the traditional glass panes of a glass roof with new solar energy-producing glass, needs to be finished. Otherwise, he will have to pay a fine because the next gig workers will not be able to start on time. When Ali arrives at the construction site, the app has the necessary information ready for him, for sure, including safety and health advice. Ali climbs onto the roof and starts working. The work is tiresome, even though a drone helps him with carrying heavy tools and material. Because of his exhaustion, he failed to notice the cracks that start to appear across the roof as he approaches the center. Suddenly, the pane he is working on gives in. Ali crashes through the roof and falls onto the concrete floor several meters below him. He suffers severe injuries. Thanks to medical advances, the doctors succeed in saving Ali's life. His multiple trauma does result in permanent impairments, however. The treatment greatly improves function of the injured spinal cord, but it cannot heal it completely. Ali will remain partially paraplegic. His days of working on rooftops are definitely over. When he leaves the hospital, he joins the ranks of the unemployed. And the big question in the year today for the year 2028 is, why? Is it because of his medical problems? Maybe. But with the technological revolution underway, it is really likely that this will be the barrier he cannot overcome. Just look at this example. What you might see also from other companies, what is possible even now, and what will be possible in some years. are three real cases of my organization, and you have seen the picture is in Berlin. And you should imagine with that medical kind of help what will be possible in some years. But why is it that despite a host of technological innovations and medical breakthroughs, return to work does not happen in my fictive case of Ali? Why does the system fail him? In the first scenario, the evolution of the job market ultimately makes it impossible for Ali to find work. And the reason? Automation. You have probably heard or read predictions about how digitalization will influence employment. Some time ago, researchers of the University of Oxford predicted, for example, that almost half of the jobs existing today would be lost to automation by 2030. The prognosis was dire, especially for the insurance sector, where computers could replace anywhere between 92 and 98% of the workers. Consequently, digitalization, the robots, artificial intelligence, and machine learning has become a bête noire, incomprehensible and therefore even more threatening. And as many of you know, scaremongering is absolutely not my cup of tea. But I'm convinced that those who say this time it's different, they have a point. In the past, technological innovation always led to more and often better jobs. We can't be sure that these things will turn out this way again. However, maybe it's not the job losses about which we should worry, but the growing polarization of job markets. A recent study of the World Economic Forum points in this direction. The researchers surveyed business leaders from round about 370 companies. And these companies represent more than 13 million employees across 9 broad industry sectors in 15 major developed and emerging economies. The striking result of their analysis is not another prediction of job losses. Actually, the researchers conclude that 75 million jobs losses to automation could be offset by more than 133 million new jobs. The striking result is this: business will still create new jobs, but these jobs will be in other sectors of the economy, and they will require new skill sets. The report mentions 2 job types that the leaders surveyed mentioned in particular: data analysts and specialized sales representatives who are capable of explaining innovative services and products to business or government clients and consumers. While employment in professions such as management, mathematics, architecture, and engineering will grow, robots and computers will increasingly substitute human work in administrative and office jobs, in construction and production. It is evident that in this environment, employability depends on one's ability to fulfill jobs that require creativity, empathy, and other uniquely human abilities. The question again is, are we ready for this? Recently, I came across an example I found particularly shocking in this respect. The Foundation for Consumer Protection in Germany tested the service quality of different telecommunication providers. They wanted to know whether computers managed to give better advice to potential customers than human workers. The test was set up in the following manner. A test person from the foundation would contact the provider via a service phone number or a chat function. The test person would always ask the same question. The question was, I want to pass my old cell phone on to my godchild. What plan would you recommend, and what aspects should I pay attention to? They expected a recommendation for an attractive phone plan and advice as to implementing online child protection software. Here is what one of the chat robots had to say, and I quote, I won't be insulted in this manner. Please stop talking this way. Sounds like this artificial intelligence is a bit touchy about the job it has to do. Example like this one provide some comic relief in view of the momentous changes digitalization brings. Yet we should not kid ourselves. Machine learning advances at a fast pace. I'm sure that in a couple of years, the answer will be much less off topic. And we have robots, chat robots, working for the German telecom since some month, and no one is realizing that he is talking to a robot and not to a human being. What really comes as a shock for me are the answers given by human agents. The live chat answer went like this, and I quote, "You don't have to pay attention to anything. Just check every 4 weeks whether there's still enough credit in your prepaid account." The hotline agent even answered, "Look for a provider you like and let them advise you." I find these answers shocking because they point us towards a problem in the digital job market. Computers will become better at interacting with humans. Consequently, it only makes sense for employers to hire human workers if they offer something that computers cannot provide, and that is emotional intelligence. Maybe the reason why return to work fails in Ali's case is his case managers cannot find a way to equip him with the right skills for a changing job market. This does not mean, however, that return to work will always fail in this scenario. Take, for instance, the highly specialized data analyst who suffers from depression. Because his skills are in such great demand, his employer does everything to improve the likelihood that he will return to work. This appreciation, combined with the self-confidence that comes with expertise, turn the analyst's rehabilitation into a success story. Under the conditions of a shortage of high-skilled labor, work reintegration might even become easier in the future, but only for a certain segment of the workforce. However, it is entirely possible that Ali does not return to work because of a different reason: inadequate social protection. When talking about return to work, one has to keep one thing in mind. Return to work is an issue that inextricably linked with social security. This is true, no matter how the social security system is organized. Whether it is tax-funded, relies on private insurance or European-style social insurance, institutions of social security play an important role in return to work because they can offer additional resources for return to work, and that is money, expertise, networks. Yet, access to social protection is by no means a given in our world. According to statistics of the International Social Security Association, only half of the world population is covered by health insurance. Only a third of the workforce benefits from insurance against work accidents and occupational diseases. Coverage is still a problem in many countries of the Southern Hemisphere. And it might return as a problem in the Northern Hemisphere. Again, the reason for this is the digital transformation of the job market. Remember that in my example, Ali is a self-employed, independent contractor. The platform he uses to find jobs has no legal obligation towards him. That means that he is responsible for ensuring his own social protection. Basic workers' rights like minimum wage, paid holidays, adequate training, especially in matters of safety and health, do not apply in his case. Maybe the company or person who hired him has liability insurance, which pays for his damages. However, whether this insurance covers only his medical bills or offers case management aiming at return to work depends entirely on the terms and conditions of the policy. it is by no means sure that this scenario will not come true, because it's underway. Digital platforms have made it possible to outsource even small tasks. The result is that a growing segment of the population uses such platforms to earn money. To be sure, this is not yet a large segment of the workforce. International studies and analysis of self-employed entrepreneurs provide a heterogeneous picture. Some countries like Greece and Italy have always had a large number of small shops whose owners are self-employed. Consequently, the subject is not new to them. Other countries have self-employed grow only since the turn of the millennium. The common denominator is that automation and digital business models may cause unemployment to rise and paid employment to shrink. Against this backdrop, it's not unlikely that a growing number of people will try to earn money as an independent contractor in fields like click work and crowd work. Some professions, computer programmers, for example, have always had a higher tendency to work as independent contractors. And as demand for these professionals grows, so will their share of the job market. It is important to note that the public debate on Social Security has already begun to react to this development. In view of possible mass unemployment, the idea of a universal basic income, for instance, has gained traction internationally. Its proponents argue that as the volume of jobs available for human workers shrinks, everyone should receive an unconditional minimum income, because otherwise mass poverty would result. Not only visionaries share this idea. Institutions like the World Bank and also some members of the ISA have included the idea as possible solutions in their reports. Around the world, politicians have suggested experiments to test a basic income. Finland has already initiated a basic income pilot, and even in my home city, Berlin, we are going to start it within the next weeks. Personally, I remain skeptical of this idea. The universal basic income has its merits, for sure. I'm aware of the positive health outcomes that the basic income experiment in Dauphin, Manitoba, produced. And I agree that in a world where everyone receives a basic income, regardless of their personal status, this might help to destigmatize the recipients of welfare benefits. But I'm cautious, however, as to replacing our existing social security system with a blanket solution like the universal basic income. My unease is due to the fact that there is not yet agreement as to how a basic income might work. Some models do not include additional benefits for people with special needs, such as people with disabilities. And it's not difficult to imagine that return to work would also suffer if governments were to implement a universal basic income. A cynical view of the problem could prevail. Why should governments invest in return to work and job creation for disadvantaged groups if they have enough money to get by? Maybe Ali does not return to work because the system in which he lives has failed to address or even enhance the structures of marginalization that have always created problems for people with disabilities or chronic illnesses. Maybe he does not manage life with a disability because disability management is no longer available for him in a large portion of the workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, the digital transformation of work may have unsettling consequences for the world of work at large, and for disability management in particular. This is why I will now turn to my second question, and if you might have forgotten it, I will repeat it. How should we approach the current changes if we aim at shaping our future instead of merely witnessing the repercussions of the digital revolution? I have 3 answers to this question. First, as a society, we must commit lifelong learning. This does not only imply enhancing the skills we already possess. We will need what the World Economic Forum called wholesale reskilling. The big Ds, digitalization and demographic change, will not leave us another option. With the share of young workers shrinking, older workers will have to fill the skills gap. In many parts of the world, the mindset prevails that you cannot retrain after the age of 40. For the majority of you, welcome to the group. The good or the bad message is that needs to change. In the past few decades, we have seen the age of retirement climb steadily in many parts of the world. In some regions, it's approaching 70. If we accept that people need to work into what was once considered old age, then we have to accept that retraining in middle age is a part of normal career path. Governments, the social partners, and companies must cooperate to ensure that workers have the time and means to retrain, preferably before an injury or chronic disease makes retraining inevitable. Second, we must ensure that social policies give priority to return to work and inclusion. This means that ditching complex social security systems in favor of blanket solutions like the universal basic income is not an option, I'm afraid. Instead, we should provide those with the greatest needs with the necessary means to enjoy full labor market participation. I know that this does not sound as appealing as trying something that has not been tried before. But history has shown that the thrill of utopia has often turned sour upon getting there. Plus, fairness demands that social policy reforms should consider the impact on the most vulnerable groups in society. Investing in existing infrastructure for return to work may not sound as radical, but yet there is considerable evidence that it will pay off. Last year, the ISA published a report on the return on work reintegration. And using financial balance sheets, the researchers at ISA calculated the benefit for companies, social security funds, and societies. The goal was to estimate a global return on investment in medical and vocational rehabilitation. And to be on the safe side, the researchers assumed that interventions only had a small effect. In spite of these restrictive assumptions, the cost-benefit ratio for all stakeholders remained positive. In the medium-sized scenario, employers, social security funds, and society at large realize an average return of 3 times the initial investment in work reintegration and rehabilitation measures. To quote from the report, overall, the results of this analysis demonstrate that the financial benefit of effective rehabilitation pays off significantly by outweighing the incurred costs. And there's nothing to add, but if you want to listen to more details, I know that my colleague Gregor Kemper is given that information, I guess, tomorrow afternoon. Third, we must adapt Social Security to the requirements of the digital economy. In September this year, I have emphasized this point in particular at the meeting of the G20 labor and education ministers in Argentina. Developments such as the gig or platform economy raise questions as to their effect on Social Security coverage and financing. The single mom who works from her kitchen as a click worker, the student who funds his studies as a part-time rider for a food delivery service, the software developer who programs an interface for a customer on another continent, they all deserve social protection. This includes access to return-to-work services in case of an accident or a long-standing health problem. This is why governments should analyze labor market transformations, and where necessary, they must amend or change social codes. I must concede that these 3 points belong more to the field of policy development than to the field of disability management as a profession. But of course, these developments also affect the profession of disability management. 2 possible consequences stand out. First, if the relevance of lifelong learning grows, then disability managers must take this development into account. This means staying on top of the evolution of occupations and professional roles in their business sector. And it means planning alternative career paths before a disability necessitates changing jobs. Secondly, it may mean that in the future, an increasing number of disability managers will not work within companies. Why is that? Because the traditional model of disability management does not apply to the growing workforce of independent contractors. Instead, service providers, such as insurance funds, for example, may hire disability managers and offer disability management as a part of their product portfolio. Thirdly, and finally, and this is also a result of a digitalized job market, we will have to redefine the meaning of consensus as in consensus-based disability management. So far, we have understood consensus as an agreement between workers on one side and employers on the other, or unions and business associations. I'm convinced that, to quote Wolfgang Zimmermann again, consensus will remain key for disability management. The interesting question, however, is who must be part of this consensus? Contractors, businesses, contractors' associations? Around the world, new associations have been founded alongside traditional workers' unions. I know that representatives of unions don't like this part of the speech, but it's reality. In Great Britain, for instance, the Independent Workers' Union has specialized on representing sections of the workforce that have traditionally been non-unionized and underrepresented, such as workers in the gig economy. It will be interesting to see if the so-called traditional unions and the traditional employers' associations will not find a way to integrate the new forms of work, whether these new associations will become influential enough to change working conditions for independent contractors significantly, or what their view on consensus-based disability management will be. Moreover, if insurance funds become increasingly active in disability management, one could ask whether a consensus needn't involve them too. After all, this constellation has its own potential conflicts of interest, which may need addressing. In view of these 3 points, it is justified to ask whether there isn't a sea change in store for our profession. Indeed, the basic structure of the disability management program has not changed much in more than 20 years. If we take a step back and examine disability management within its economic and societal context, it is likely that we will discover one thing. Digitalization does not call for another module in the training program. With a momentous shift in the foundations upon which we have built our work as disability managers, we must consider broader consequences. These consequences may lead us to a revision of the entire program, and they may lead us to the creation and elaboration of new networks and alliances. It is no accident that I've talked so much about the potential consequences of digitalization for social policy. I think that the institutions of Social Security, for example, are a formidable partner for disability managers and disability management. Together, they could champion the value of return to work much more effectively than each group alone. It is worthwhile to explore cooperation, as I am sure that our field will benefit from such targeted advocacy. No matter where digitalization and its effects may ultimately lead us, there is one thing I remain sure of. Our profession has made and continues to make a huge impact on the lives of workers with disability and chronic illnesses. It plays a central role in ensuring the participation and inclusion of people with disabilities. I am convinced that if we accept the challenges ahead, and if we treat them with the same creativity and ingenuity that we have used to solve problems in the past, then we will be able to celebrate a longer list of accomplishments when we return 20 years from now. And I hope to see you all there. Thanks.
Thank you.